Okay, we're going to be talking about acculturation as a way for understanding human behaviors and processes. Acculturation is the process where individuals or groups adopt elements of another culture, and this could be anything included from customs or values or behaviors, and eventually this shapes into what we call identity. And this happens from really the result of prolonged contact between different culture groups, where you start to see more of each other's characteristics. So we really have two groups here. We have your host culture, which is the new culture we're being exposed to, and your native culture, the one that you came from. And a really good model to look at this acculturation concept from is Berry's acculturation model. And it basically just puts native culture on one side and then host culture on the other. And he came up with 4 different categories that people can kind of fit themselves into based on where they're at in the process of acculturation. So we'll start with integration. Integration is when people value and maintain both their host culture and their native culture. This means that they can maintain a strong relationship with their home culture and still participate and value the norms of the old culture while participating in the host culture, which means they adopt some of the norms and values of both cultures, so they have a foot in both worlds. The next one we have is assimilation, where they've integrated themselves into the host culture and they no longer value or maintain values from their native culture. Here we have people who've just kind of lost their native culture and they just only value the host culture and don't think about their native culture. The next one we have is separation, where we don't maintain the values of our new culture, but we do still maintain our native cultures. And separation is where we just completely reject the new culture. We choose not to participate in any sorts of cultural values or norms or ideas and beliefs, and we retain all of the native values and norms. And the last one we have is marginalization, where the individual rejects both cultures. They don't consider themselves part of either group. Maybe their values don't align, or they don't see themselves with the same, conforming to the same norms as that group, so they just don't belong to either group. Acculturation is really vital for humans to adapt to a new environment and make sure that we're still maintaining cultural identity, as well as making sure that we have a sense of who we are within a larger community. And when we aren't able to do that, we have something called acculturative stress, which in simpler terms is just culture shock. And culture shock can really put a really big cognitive load on someone because it causes dissonance, because the things that we're seeing around us may come as new information to us that we're not really used to, and our mind is not really able to process that all at once if there's a lot of different elements of culture shock coming into play at once. But to talk about the limitations of Berry's model, although it is very clear and it does provide a very clear representation of the categories that you can group themselves in, it's quite hard to quantitatively put an individual in one group automatically by just asking them, oh, are you maintaining your home culture, yes or no, and are you maintaining your new culture, yes or no. It could very much be that the individual sometimes oscillates between the two. On some days they feel a bit more connected to their home culture, on some days they feel as if they're a little bit lost from it, which means that Berry's model is not very able to represent these gradients, and it's only really just a black and white of whether or not you belong to this culture or not. Another aspect of Berry's model that is a limitation is that it's very objective, and sometimes people just don't want to be grouped into labels like these. So a study done in 2010 did a semi-structured interview with a lot of Asian American immigrants to see if there were any signs that could accurately predict acculturative stress among families. And what they found was that mostly negative treatment from society and a lack of family value alignment can increase the stress that is put on families. And if we think about this from a logical application style perspective, we can see that if your family values don't align, because each person in the family is at a different step in the acculturation process. Maybe one person is already perfectly integrated, they've got a foot down in both worlds. Maybe someone is completely separated, they can't really adjust to living in a new environment because they're really homesick. Maybe someone just completely rejects both cultures because they just don't feel like they belong, and the other one only adopts all the values of the new culture and doesn't really care about their home values. That can make home life very difficult for the family, as well as challenge a lot of the living decisions. And another limitation of these studies is a lot of the times when we're doing acculturation studies, we're thinking really hard about interviewing people who are migrants or immigrants, and it can be hard to do these because of language barriers with the way we are structuring our questions, or also because some people may be undocumented and it's quite unsafe for them to maybe reveal personal information that could put them at risk. So yeah, those were the methodological considerations. Although this study in particular, they did the interviews with people who actually shared similar cultural backgrounds, so the participants would feel a lot safer sharing their information, as well as feel more comfortable and more understood in that group setting. Yeah.